This is a guy's 1965 Doge Polara. I bought this from a friend, sight unseen, way out in Wyoming, and it was a restoration someone started years ago, never finished. My buddy picked it up and he had hopes to finish it, but he's really big into racing and just never really got around to it. So it sat again for years and years and years. I went out, cobbled this thing together, got it running, and drove it all the way back to Tennessee through the rain with no top. It was a mess, but nonetheless, we made it back and I realized this is too good of a car to just exist. I want to push this thing over the finish line and finish this restoration. Given all the work we've already done to it, there's still quite a bit left to do. Some would say I bumped my head, but I made a list. Look here, we've got to do some brake work still. We've got some goofy stuff going on there. I'm gonna put new wheels on this, something you guys have been asking for a long time. We're finally gonna pull it off, and I think it's gonna look great on this particular car. We've got interior electrical to finish up. There's guts hanging out of the dash. Some of the stuff doesn't work. We got to dial in the fuel, make it happen, or get the digital choke working and all of that. We've got paint correction to do. It's a pretty good paint job, but there's some areas that need attention and we got to clean up the paint as well. We got a radiator and hoses to put in. Right now it's got like a Hyundai Selectra or something on its side. It's all wrong and it still gets hot. So we got to take care of that. And then we're going to finish it up with new exhaust. And at that point, it's not going to be perfect, but this car should be something that a lot of people could be very, very proud of. And at that point, I think we're going to be able to pass it on to somebody else. We got a lot of work to do. Let's dig in. So I think we're gonna dig right in on the brake system here. We've replaced a ton of parts, almost all of them in fact, but I've got some issues going on with the drums. It's like they're warped or something is going on there. So let's blow apart the front end, take those off, look at them again, maybe adjust it, but I think I'm gonna have to run these into town, and instead of ordering new ones, I'm gonna try to turn these, not only save some money, but we can also manage that project ourselves and make sure that it's as good as possible. We got to put wheels on this anyway. At that point, we'll probably paint it up, doll it up, clean the inside of the wheel wells, take these tires off, which are new, put them on the new wheels and get those back on the car. And right away, we're going to see a huge transformation. My leg is stuck on this lever now, isn't it? Great. This is not going to be good. All right, we'll use the air jack here and lift the lies on the rig. Dangle up the front. We got enough wind? We just might. Trying to remember all the parts you put on this thing, and it looks like quite a long list actually. I might have already put drums on it. That's odd. Looks like all the brake equipment, hoses, lines, everything, starter. I know we cleaned the fuel lines, did a bunch of work there. But we must continue. So when you brake, see, grips, free. So something is off center or warped or something here. And when you brake, it really just, you know, typical Mopar stuff, but let's try to fix it. Wow, painted wheels. I'm putting your lug nuts on here. How to tell when Derek likes a car. What in the devil? There we go. So in the past, when we do brakes, you'll probably always see me after I do, whether it's dinner plate brakes or drums, I like to spin them and rotate them. And a lot of times you can feel that issue. See, this one I could see almost like it was dropped or something. I got the shoes adjusted right. Oh, see? This is broke. Now, that doesn't really affect performance, but what that's telling me is I must have dropped this or something, or it got hurt in shipping, I can't remember. But nonetheless, this hit the ground and probably made this more of an egg shape. So we're gonna have to go turn this and try to get it true again or round. I'm gonna try that first before buying another. Get up here. Yeah, all new hardware, shoes, wheel cylinder, adjusted doodaber 4000, lines. It's already nice and clean in here. Let's get the other side off. We'll load these in the truck, head to town. Ha! Left-hand thread, almost forgot. Yeah, I don't know. Someone in the basement with the red stapler said, look, if you don't have left-hand thread, them wheels is gonna... Not the case. Pay attention to the studs when you're working on old rigs. There's only one of these that is original. It actually has an L carved into it. Otherwise, you can also tell just because of the way that they are, if they're left-hand, you know. Okay. Now I'm not having that crazy grabbing on this side, but if I'm going to be borrowing a machine, mazel, go ahead and just throw both up. You know what I mean? Okay, let's head to town. So here's a machine the guy's going to be using. It's set up for dinner plate breaks. We're going to set this up for a drum, or at least gas on it. And fire this up and run a couple tips. This is the captain side. Now you can see, even though that drum is wobbling, I can run this in. Listen how quiet it gets. There we go. Maybe run it just a hair right on the edge. There we go. Oh yeah. All right, load the next one. So here you can see the original surface untouched, and then where I resurfaced it to make it more round. So now this thing should be dialed in, other than being balanced, which there's no weight on this. This is a non-balanced unit anyway. Some of you might have been thinking, well, wait a minute, if you're losing this tiny bit of material, does that throw it out of balance? Technically yes, but it's not going to be a huge deal. These don't have a weight on them anyway. These were the cheapest one I could find, and the reason I'm doing this instead of buying new ones is these are 125 bucks a piece versus 20 on the machine. So drinker side, you can hear how uneven this one is too. That's the pulsing we're getting in the brake pedal, but we'll get her fixed up. Last one all done. A little more aggressive with this one because I know that we had an issue with it, but got to clean the machine up, put it back how I found it, do some vacuuming. Gonna get all the chips and stuff out of here.
We'll get back to the shop.
Well, guys, back in the shop. I'm on my second coat of brake rejuvenation spray. Rebuilding, new shoes. Now these are actually brand new, but I'm just spraying them down, making sure we get all the debris off or anything like that. We're in here. Mazel. We're going to make sure they're moving freely, nothing's stuck. All that seems fine. I could see where we have uneven wear here and on the middle of this shoe, and that's the crazy shape we had going on with that puppy right there. I already did, but another thing we want to do is make sure the wheel bearing is healthy and happy. Best time to do that is when the drum is off, so you're not hearing anything or feeling like it's moving with the drum on. This thing is butter. Try to move it in all positions, in and out. It's tight, no issues there. So one thing we're gonna have to do is maybe throw a little bit of adjustment into this, like that, before we put that drum on. I like to adjust it here on the outside or front side first before I slide that on. It's a lot faster than spooning it on the back side. And by brake spoon, if you're a redneck like me, it's a flat screwdriver. Okay, now hear that? We have a consistent shoe noise, and that's exactly what we wanted. Before it was on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, and that was this being out of true. Now, well, that's pretty good actually. I'm gonna put one more click in that. What you want is to hear it dragging, not necessarily feel it. I think one more. That's pretty good. You don't want it to be tough, but you want it to be pretty decent. Now, does it have to be science? No. I'm going to tell you this. All it has to be is very similar to the opposite side. You don't want one side loose that just spins super easy and the other side is really tight and it drags, because when you hit the brakes and the wheel cylinders expand, it's going to break the side that's tighter first. There's Daryl. Been a while, bud. So you want to just make sure that they're the same from both sides. Where you go? Okay. Oh, good to see you. All right, let's do the other side. Actually, let me finish rebuilding that. Looks like I put the wheel on pretty quick after we, then we'll go to the other side. Some super exciting news. We are getting really close to the official release of the Vice Grip Garage Rebuild Black. We are now in the label stage. I've been testing this for a very long time, but I'll let you guys know when we get her out. It's high temp. Basically, watch. New wheel bearings. See? Rebuilds anything you put it on. It's gonna be great for frames, chassis, firewalls, brake parts, tie rods. You name it, all the stuff that I usually use this flat or matte color on. Let that dry. Move over to the other side. I think I nailed that one. Right out the gate. A little bit of Rebuild Black. Oops. brake clean all over this thing. Ah, that'll go over it. There we go. Hop. New tie rod end, brand new. New torsion bar, new lower control arm and shock. So this rig here, we got the original steel wheels and the poverty caps on it, which a lot of times I agree with. They look pretty sharp, and I'll even seek them out. But in this particular case, I don't know, it's kind of a hybrid. It's right in the middle. It's got a really cool look to it, almost like a hot rod or classic cruiser, but it also has that luxury going to town kind of grandpa look. I want to take some of that grandpa away and maybe have this vehicle appeal to more people. And we're going to make it sound like it, and let's make it look like it. So we're going to take the steelies and the poverty caps off, which I'll put in the trunk, don't worry. And we're going to go with these 15 by 7 Krager SS wheels. Yeah, that is going to change the entire attitude of the vehicle. Of course, we're still going to do white letters out. So let's get these over to the machine, bust them off the steelies, throw them on this, get them balanced, put them back on the rig. Man, this is going to look really good, isn't it? Yep, okay. Well, the guys got two rassled on and balanced. I just got to clean them up, put the center caps on, we'll get them on. But mistakes were made. Yeah, I know. Weird, right? I got to order 2 more tires. I'm going to try to make a long story into a short one. And then hopefully it'll kind of all make sense. So anywho, way, being that every single minute of my life for about a year in advance is accounted for, I'm ordering parts for multiple projects all over different states and here as well. And I had forgotten that I ordered 15-inch wheels because I want to move to 15s. And I was going to use these 14-inch tires, which are new, on a dart project coming up. And I had 2 existing 15s in the corner I've been trying to use for 2.5 years, but I forgot to order the other 2. So here's where we're at. These wheels and the poverty caps are going to stay with the car. These 14s are going to go on a dart project, like I just said. These are like literally brand new. It's just a trip home from Wyoming. So we're going to hang on to these, and the rears obviously when I get those off. Over here we've got Futura Super Sports, I think. Yeah, I know, another cheap tire brand. But these are 15s, and this is the size I wanted to move to, which is a 225/60/15, which is going to better fill the wheel well here, you know, because this looks kind of dorky. It's such a small tire for such a big car, and this bigger tire I think is going to fill it up better, and it's going to give it a lot better handling, traction, and ride with a much wider, a little bit taller tire. So I'm going to get on the interwebs, order up 2 of these right now. I just got to lay these down and clean up this blue protective coating and all that stuff off. Hot water will melt that stuff right off, and like a gray Scotch-Brite pad, and I'll get the center caps on, and then we'll throw them up here. The Rebuild Black is nice and dry. We should be good to go. Guy had a last-second harebrained idea here, and it's working fantastic. Mostly because I'm lazy and I don't want to get some sort of device to haul hot water in. Nor do I really need my hot water heater running. I'm just using the VGG wax and grease remover. Or use whatever flavor you want. But anyway, this stuff seems to work great on this blue protective coating. Look at that. Comes right off. I'll be dead. I've spent more time scrubbing on this stuff than you know what. This is just a gray, I don't know what they call them, Scotch-Brite. Use your teeth, whatever you want. There we go. Get some raw gaze and dry her up. Well, the guy got bit. Got bit again. Just spent 47,000 hours on the interwebs there. And it turns out finding these tires is harder than doing your own taxes. Then I remembered my memory of why there were only two sitting in the corner. I can't remember where I got these, Alibaba or yard sale or something. But anyway, they're Pep Boys tires. Apparently Pep Boys is going out of business. You can't get tires unless you go to the store and have them installed. They don't ship them, you can't pick them up. At least that's what their terrible website was telling me. So, I had to bite the bullet and order 4 new tires. We're just gonna do it right and get some Koopa Coppers. You know what I mean? And these junk heaps will go back in the corner until they're so dry rotted, we'll eventually use them on a revival or something like that. But anyway, we can get the look down and at least get it back on its paws. We're gonna have to jump around a little bit on our list because now I'm waiting on tires. That's great. Well, I do think that's gonna look a lot better. A lot more tire and wheel in the fender well there. I did order the same size, 255 60/15s, but I don't want to monkey with the rear just yet until we get the skins here. They're coming from Chicago, so maybe we'll get them before the next full moon. I'm just going to do the same with the other side, get them up here, get a couple lugs on, just so we have something on the car. Well, it is went ahead and bees the next morning, actually. Coffee cup check. Das Boot. After the tire debacle, I thought, well, wait a minute. Let's start opening boxes and make sure everything I got in there is going to work for Pete's sake. Guess what I found? No. Nope. Got an issue with the radiator. I'll show you that. And we're going to jump over and start working on the paint stuff. I'll get the heater off here in a minute. Don't worry. So this would have a 22-inch water boiler in her. Right now we've got some plastic thing kicked on its side. But anyway, I ordered a 22-inch for this, and I ended up with this gigantic 25-inch thing, which is, I think, a B-body big block or something like that. Not going to work. The inlet and outlet is correct, but it's way too large. So I got to see if I can return that, and if not, we'll stick it on the shelf and use it for something else. So I got one ordered that's supposed to be a 22-inch, but of course it's made to order, basically. So I think it's time to go ahead and get this car down on the ground, and I got to show you guys the top. It has a top now, and I actually had to send that out to do the top. A, not easy to find the material. B, it was very difficult finding someone that could actually do that. And a retired sheriff who used to do upholstery work is the guy that actually did the top for me out of his home garage, which I thought was really cool. But there is a top on it. It looks absolutely beautiful. And if you remember, it's fully functional. It'll lift up and down, do all that stuff. But man, did that change the car. But I also want to address the paint itself. It was repainted many moons ago. But I want to bring her around even shinier. It's already too shiny. It scares me a lot. It does. So let's look at the top and then we'll start talking about paint. So this is the original correct material that would have been on it. That was part of the problem I was having, was I didn't want to put in some aftermarket cheesy one. I wanted to do it correctly, but it just changed the whole look of the car. It looks great. It's been outside for a while. It's still got to do, of course it's winter. It needs some heat, a little bit of shrinking here and there, but the top part has already shrunk up. I I got all the wrinkles and everything out of it. Also on the inside, all of the equipment has been painted. So all of this was disassembled, cleaned and painted, greased all the way around. So that's good. So now we got a snazzy looking top. We got to keep going here, make this paint really shine. It's got some good shine on it, I know, but there is some pretty severe, what we call orange peel here and there. It just looks like, well, an orange peel. And if we can get that peel out, kind of watch right there, it's going to make a more reflective surface and just look shiny. So I got to figure out what kind of material or product to use on this. Obviously we don't want to burn through it. I don't want to burn through the edges or anything like that. I do make a fancy machine that'll measure the depth of the paint so you know how aggressive you can get. Or we just use our eyeballs. I mean, unless you look like bubbles. We come up here, there's some chips. And you can see the original yellow. Then we have primer. Looks like a sealer. And then a single stage enamel. And it is very thin, unfortunately. So, if it was thicker, I could actually wet sand this and then buff it out, or just use buffing compound or sanding compound and buff it out. But I don't think we have that much material. So I'll probably use a medium compound and we'll just test it. Let's test it maybe back here. But the first thing I'm going to do is just wet this down with some glass cleaner or something like that and get all this dirt. There's some cat paws and things like that. Looks like a bird visited us. We don't want to be grinding any of that into the paint. And it is way too cold to roll it outside and wash it. This thing will freeze immediately and we'll be waiting for this thing to dry forever. So let me wipe it down and then we'll get started. So a guy did a little test area here. I'm using this, I'm out of the griot stuff I wanted to use. This is cheap McGuire stuff. It's a fine cut cleaner, but I'm using it with the wool pad to try to pick up the aggressiveness a little bit. Oh yeah, this is significantly better. So we're just trying to smooth out the surface, remove any minor defects, remove swirl marks, any dulling or fading, and I think this is the right combination. Huge difference. I'll show you here in a sec. Let me get this off. Whew. I was gonna have to take his boots off getting in this thing. Wow. This is gonna be a gorgeous car when we are finished. We also gotta make a suspension adjustment. Should add that to the list. And I also ordered some shocks. We'll see if those will fit. Probably not. We'll get in here and look at this now. That's the side going to the top. Much smoother. So I think that's the winning combination. And if I wanted to, I could come back with a polishing cream, but I don't know that we'll need to. We may be able to do this in one step. So, I guess let me finish the deck lid, and I still got to wipe down and clean the front of the car, and then we'll lift it up. We'll use the lift to our advantage, get the car up, you know, chest height, and I can run down the sides. But this is going to take hours, but boy, is it going to be worth it. Well, it's been a better part of a day, a very long day at that, but nonetheless, the Polara is cut and buffed, and this thing looks absolutely incredible. Had to be a little gentle in some areas. You could tell the paint was really thin, kind of put on dry. So I moved around with some products and went from foam to microfiber to wool, things of that nature, but I think I got it about as good as I can. Thankfully, it did not burn through anywhere on any ridges or anything like that. So all the paint is still intact and we didn't create any damage. But this Polara looks absolutely amazing. I don't know how old this paint is, but it really came around. Now that it's looking bright in the red, let's address the chrome. We've got some bumpers we can kind of fix up, get some shine back out of them, take some stickers off, things like that. And that's going to help the overall image of the vehicle as well. Actually, I apologize. I'm going to fix these rock chips first before heading on the chrome. I had some Victory Red in stock for touch-up paint, and this is going to be pretty close. Anything's better than bare metal hanging out here. There we go. Might take a couple passes. Get the color in here. And then the other end of this pen has clear coat. They've really upped their game on the old touch-up paint. There. I don't know. I've seen women do that for the nails. I don't know if it helps with touch-up paint, but a little darker. Victory Red is a little darker. So the bumpers on this car are obviously such a big part of the real estate. We want to clean these up, make them look nice. You can kind of already see this side versus this side. This side here is with a medium cut cleaner and wool pad. Just kind of hit the top here just to see what it would do. And it did pretty good, but there are a lot of different scratches and imperfections in there. I'm going to start out by taking a Rosé Blade and getting this old Farmer's Insurance sticker off of here. If it was in decent condition, I'd just leave it, to be honest, but it's not helping us. And I want some of the shine back that's underneath of it. Then we'll come in here and polish the metal a little bit and then buff it. Come on. You gotta get off now. Boy, that's been on there a long, long time. Kind of cool seeing the really nice chrome underneath of it. Gives you an idea what the bumper used to look like when this was put on. Probably in the 70s, late 60s. Guy's gonna grab some quad zero steel wool here. 00. And just some, glass cleaner. Guy likes to use something with some alcohol in it for the obvious reason, but also it cleans pretty good. Anywho's scrubbing. Here, look at this. This is cleaning, scrubbing. We'll get over here too. Might as well get right here. It's clean here. And then, we just keep rubbing that in. Okay. Next step is, some of this old school Never-Dull here. I don't know. Never-Dulls, I guess. Gonna grab a handful here. Yep, seems fine. Boom, rubber in. This is how it works. You put it on and you rub it around, smearing it. And I will just do this half over here first, I guess, because I'm lazy, basically, and then, we'll see what we got. But guys, just gonna rub that in there like this. Yeah, looking pretty good. Now we'll wipe that off. I don't know. See what we got going on so far. I need a cleaner rag. Does the guy got a cleaner rag around here? I don't know. Probably not. But nonetheless, we're wiping that off now. Time to buffalize. Foam pad with some perfection cream. And let's throw it out on here. See that? This is buffing. So you you know, this is how you buff a bumper. You just buff. And then this will take some of the scratches out of there and whatnot, and it'll look chrome underneath of that, is what I'm trying to say here. Wow, look at this. You can clearly see one side is more shinier chrome than the other. So the process works. You got to trust in the processes. Okay, we're going to do this up front too. We got some more bugs in the teeth up front, a little more scrubbing, but nonetheless, got to keep moving. We're going to get the front cleaned up, and the chrome's going to be looking great on this rig. You know, it's not often the guy's got a car around that you got hypothermia in, but here's one of them. That rain will sneak up on you. I ain't kidding. So yeah, we got a lot more bugs up here. Whoops, bugs in the teeth. Bugs in the teeth. I'm gonna do this in thirds, I think. Here, the center, and then the outside over there. But yeah, we've got like a dent here, a couple dents here, dent here. The bumper head is smashed. You know, this bumper's pushed some traffic. Let's just put it that way. Which that's okay. I'm not against that. I'm just saying, if this rig could talk. Well, checking in on a list here. Brake work is done. Resurface the drums, bleed and grease, yep. Wheels and balance tires, now we're waiting on that stuff. But we jumped down to paint, cut and buff, paint correction. That is done. Let's move on to trace. Interior electrical. There's not a lot wrong, it's just super messy. There's some things that don't work, like the cigarette lighter and the radio. I'd like to just at least try, see if we could button up some of the stuff. The more things that work in the dash, more gooderest, the betterer. First thing I need to do is get some more light in there. Let's drop the top on this thing. What have we got? All the light I could ask for. I can't remember which way the button's supposed to go. Maybe down is down? No. Up? What is going on? Did I miss a... What am I missing here? That side's unlatched. It was taut. There we go. Ha! Now we got all the lights. Show you what I'm talking about as far as wiring in here. So we've got this ball of wires here. I mean, basically the whole bottom side of the dash. Miscellaneous wiring hanging everywhere. Things have been spliced, cut. I'd also like to, they didn't tape off the dash when they painted in here. I get some rebuild black in here and touch some of this stuff up. Maybe even this brake pedal. I don't know, it just kind of looks, car's getting so nice now, you start picking apart this little stuff. So let me climb under, see if I can discern what this is, what all of that stuff is, kind of work my way through it. All of the gauges work, the radio does not. Well, let's just try to figure it out. Heat works. Wipers work. Radio does not. Although that would be pretty wild if I can get that to work. Lights do work. We already went through that. I think I got a bulb out though. I got, I think highs, not lows. Fuel gauge works, speedometer works, coolant temperature gauge works, the charging gauge works, oil pressure. So really it's cigarette lighter, radio, Put that on your cheek. See if it's got heat. No, don't do that. That obviously works. So we'll just try to clean this up, get the radio working if we can. Cigarette lighters are nice for traveling. You can see I bought one, but never got to use it. Charge the old TomTom, whatnot. So a guy looked up under the dash. Oh, well, that was hooked to the speaker in the dash. That's unhooked now. I think that's a secondary speaker. I believe this is power to the radio. This is the radio harness. This is spliced off of it. I think this was supposed to go to the rear. But my guess is they watered it up to paint. Obviously, got the carpet in too quick and went, whoops, no rear speaker. So we'll kind of clean that up, get some of this junk. We've got an issue with, I believe that's the cigarette lighter plug. Normally these plug into the back of these and they ground to the car themselves. That almost started a fire. This looks like antenna. That'll stay. This needs painted. All this stuff needs painted under here. So let me get to work. I'll be back here in a few minutes. See if we can make this look a little better. Well, I think the guys got her dialed in. Paint's still wet down here, but used the rebuild black on the pedals and the existing wiring, the heating box, all of that. Got all the old wire pulled out. There was a big pile of it. And that music's terrible, but that's the station that comes in. So everything now works in this vehicle with the exception of the cigarette lighter. That does not work, but dome lights, radio, all the switches, doodads, whatnots. Well, I guess maybe the horn. I might run a meter across that and just see what's going on with that, but wiring has come around a long ways. I need to fix that tape goo on the window. That was before the top was on. Let's clean that up quick. Just using a Rosier Blade. And we'll come across it with some cleaner. She'll be good to go. The glass is in excellent shape on this car, with the exception of a rock chip over yonder. But other than that, it's in really good shape. If I could find someone semi-local, I might have that fixed too. There we go. Ah, that's much better. Well, a guy troubleshot the horns for a little while. The wiring is good. You know, flip the meter over on the horseshoe mode from here to the horn relay. Not getting any power there. Power in the column is good, so the horn button in the steering wheel itself, I think, is a little faulty. I cleaned up a bunch of wiring under the hood here. I ran some harness tape around a few things. Put some zip ties through the fender well to make them look like the original holder downs, which actually was like a push button. But that's just a long zip tie cut on the bottom of the fender well. And it's still drying, but hit that with some rebuild black as well. I think that's going to do it for tonight. Tomorrow we are going to lift this thing up in the air, and Chad from Volunteer Muffler and Performance is going to be here, and we're going to put a whole new exhaust system on this thing. Something that's going to match the attitude of this. See you guys tomorrow morning, bright and early.
Well, good morning. Back on the Polara. You can hear the hum of the old blue bullet over there, which means one thing. Chad from Volunteer Muffler is here. I've convinced him to come up and do some exhaust on the Polara here. You can see he's got the sticks already in off of the manifold there. It was missing two nuts, one on each side, and the gaskets were I was just playing with one. Oh, here it is. Completely roached. So we're going to fix all that. No more exhaust leak. We're going to do some old school glass packs on this and try to change the exit. Before it was coming out the rear with kind of a weird, odd bend on the pipes. Just didn't really match the car. It looked kind of dorky. But we'll see if Chad can work his magic. There's a pocket in there between the spring and the frame. He's going to try to sneak them through. And we have to keep in mind a wider rear tire is eventually going to be going on. Do your exhaust guy a favor. Try to have your wheels and tires on the vehicle before you bring them in. I was trying to do it, but now we're kind of guessing. But those are center offset, and I know that I'm gaining an inch on one side, inside and outside, so he's kind of got a ballpark idea. But I'm going to let him whip the exhaust on. I'm going to stay out of his way, let him work the magic. And this thing's going to sound much better. No more leaks. It'll probably run a little bit better too. And all this old, rusted out, hacked up junk from who knows when is gone. Those are some long glass packs. Golly. So here's what we got. Cliffs. Form tubes. Look at that. Made in the USA. And you could tell they use a jig on the weld. They must just roll these in like a drive shaft roller or something, weld them up. But nice made in America glass packs. Well, Chad just finished up. Oh, it looks so much better. Doesn't have that dorky kick down here. And it sounds much, much better with these glass packs. Yeah, that's the noise we needed. It just matches the era of the vehicle, the wheels, kind of the look we're going for. A lot more crisp, raspy, and bigger exhaust pipe, 2 1/4 all the way through, true duals. And I just like the way we kicked this out on the edges. A lot better than just straight out the rear back there. That just kind of looked dorky to me. Anyway, exhaust complete. Let's go cross this off the list. Not used to attempting to be organized here, so new exhaust done. Interior electrical done. We've got radiator, wheels and tires, and air shocks coming. Well, the exhaust is all finished up, and once again, another amazing job by Chad and Volunteer Exhaust there in Cookeville. Before we put the tires back on, or those tires show up, we get all that taken care of, I want to adjust these rear shocks. If you remember before we dug into this in the drive home, the rear was a little drooper in the drawers. You see a lot of that at Walmart. But anyway, we got to bring the rear up a little, and I'd like to bring the front down a little. Give it just a little bit of rake, if anything, flat. And right now it's opposite. So I do have some air shocks here on the shelf, but these are more for a GM application. And looking at it here, it's kind of the wrong style, and it's going to have interference in here. And they're not long enough either. So I'm going to have to try to fix what I've got here. The lines are all snapped off and stuff like that. But I've got a line kit that came with these. Maybe that'll work on that. And these shocks, fingers crossed, will just work. And then all we have to do is hit it with air, and gives us a little bit of height in the rear. Yeah, so if you look up in there, it's a stem with an eyelet. And these are not that design. And this case is awfully big to be fitting up in there. So this style isn't going to work, but like I was just saying, hopefully we can just repair the lines here. So air shocks are typically really universal.
course, I say that now and we might be in trouble. Well, by golly, I think that's going to work. So we should be able to just plug that in, screw this cap down, voila. And then we'll run this line, excuse me, we'll run this line back. I got these little press-in doodabber clamps. I might need to, boy, I'd hate to drill a hole. That's the only thing. But I don't really have much here. Well, I think I might do that. I mean, otherwise we're just running self-tappers anyway, right? Speaking of self-tappers, this has nothing to do with it. I found this bracket thing and a bolt inside the frame here, and you can see lots of rubbing marks on it. And I'm thinking I might have found one of the rattles that was driving me crazy on that road trip back. Little things like that. That side unplugged. Get this one in. And then I'll drill 14 holes until we figure out what size hole is the correct one. So these little clampy doodabbers. And I would like to get it up where the gas is, the filler in the back for the Schrader valve. Just so it's convenient, but also hidden. There we go. Yep. Yeah. All right. All right. Yep. So I think the guy's going to start with a 1/4-inch hole, and then we'll see what that looks like to our face. There's a hole already here. We'll start there. Okay, there we go. Oh, does that work? Boy, I don't know. It doesn't seem goodly. Waller it. Give her just a waller. Now what's it say? It's not really saying anything better. What if we grab my leather person and, oh yeah, there we go. Okay, 3 on each. Bingo, bango, Bob's your uncle, over there. That's the plan anyway. Ooh, found some dirt, that's free. Wow. I think I'm gonna hit that with some air. No sense in having that sitting there and get moist and cause a leak or something. Found some more. Found some more of that stuff. Keep on rolling, rolling, rolling. There we go. Oh, yeah, we're getting her done. There we go. Oh, I gotta blow that out. I just said that. I'm pretty sure we want to open our mouth when we do this. A bunch of water gets in here, gets rusty, makes more holes than the frame leaks frame. Can't have that. We don't want our frame leaking frame. Plug away. Catch up with you in a minute here when we drill a hole in the back. So those lines are ran nice and tidy now. And I was gonna drill a hole and then it was like, oh yeah, duh, remember it already had air shocks. It looks like it goes in the trunk or something, so let's get that figured out. But before we do that, and before I forget, I'm going to do some rubber undercoating in here and clean some of this up. And I gotta clean some of this dust and dirt out of here now. Maybe inside of the wheel well, get some overspray in there, and just make it look nice. Well, the guy got a little bit carried away, but the fender wells, spring perches, frame, tank is now rubberized. Pretty much all of it is nice and clean, crisp looking. Put another new brake drum on the back. By new, just, you know. And then underneath, I even cleaned up the transmission. This was just natural, and I just didn't like the way it looked. So I cleaned that up and put kind of an original cast color on the transmission itself and kept going. I didn't like the way that this body seam in the rocker here looked. They didn't prep it well, and it was starting to chip and fall, stuff like that. So wire wheeled that, scuffed it, sanded it, primered it, and repainted just the underside rocker. That is Ford 8N red out of a rattle can from the Tractor Supply store, and I'll be dipped. I think it matches. So anyway, back to what we were doing. Let's finish plumbing up the air shocks here. Well, the guy's been digging in the trunk for a long time. I've got kind of a throwaway pile, and I found some really neat stuff in here. I don't think we ever went all the way to the bottom, but anyway, I've got a new water pump, extra one, and a brake master cylinder that's going to go with the car. Found some fluids and stuff, of course. Original jack and all that stuff. That's the cover for the top. When you put it down, it snaps around. And then I found a box of a bunch of doodads and extra things, and I found a coveted small window crank in here. I ordered one for the drinker side, but lo and behold, it was in here. I also found a spare tire cover, carpet cover, that matches. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the mouse sucker out, vacuum all this stuff up, clean it, put these chemicals back in inventory. There's the bag, that'll stay too. And then we'll throw a spare in here and throw that cover on. And then, of course, get back to, once again, the air shocks. Air delivery done. Hidden under the carpet there. Whoop, gotta put a capillator on it. So now, let's go ahead and mount up the new rubber that showed up. That's the right size. My bad. Get that on the back of this car, and then we can let it down and actually test if they work. Got one of these Cooper Cobras on, balanced. Whoop. I think I'm gonna have to sneak this under, get this to fit, because we're going a taller and wider tire. Try to fit these wheel wells. Give it more of a 70s muscle look. Come on now. Yes, there we go. Oh yeah. Now that is the look I'm going for. Now keep in mind, this is going to sink into the wheel well quite a bit. I got to lift by the frame. I think we're good. Plenty on the exhaust. That is a success. And same on the other side, and then I'll get the lift down and we will test these shocks. And then of course we're gonna have to lower the front. That's actually very easy on a Mopar. Once we get that where we want it, we'll come back to the rear, make a couple adjustments, and we should have her stanced out. I don't know, I think that's what the kids say. Who knows what it means, but where did my wrist ruiner go? Ooga dooga machine. Oh, I'm sure Bentley took it. Great. Well, let's let this thing down off the locks, see where it sits. That's the shock. Huh. Might have to pull on the bumper a couple times because that's already sitting. There we go. Yep. Nope. Got about 1 1/8" sag in the rear. But there's plenty of clearance. I just bagged on it. No issues there. So now we know 255 60/15 science confirmed. Polaras will fit, and that's exactly what this car needed. That tire, the little 14, just looks so dorky in here. Now we got some, you know, some muscles. All right, let me get the air hose and let's see if we can get it up. Now, if it does go up in the back, I mean, I'll really get her up just for effect, but I just want it off the bottom of the shock because I like the way that the tire kind of looks tucked in there, and we can do something similar in the front. But let's give it a shot. Nothing may happen. Hip. Yeah. It's going. There we go. Stop about there. There, now we actually have a suspension system. Who would have thought? Irreversible back damage driving this thing home, but okay, now we got about 1.5" positive rake to the front, and if we bring the front down maybe 1.5", this car is going to have the look. It's not going to look lazy or any of that stuff. I'm talking grandpa to gangster. Like that. Ouch. Where did that hurt? Oh, I'm bleeding. Huh. Where'd that come from? This has been over here making noise for a long time, and a lot of you have asked about it. And where this came from was actually roadworthy rescues. We were down in Texas, it was snowing, it was cold, everyone was miserable. We got like 2 or 3 bad starters right out of the box. Never seen anything like it. And I said, I'll tell you what, if I take all of these starters apart and put them back together and make one good one out of all of these pieces with a Leatherman only, I get a margarita machine. And the showrunner kind of laughed and was like, sure. And I did it. So boom, margarita machine. Although we just, well, one side's for the kids and let's say the other side's more for the adults. You know what I mean? So before we make adjustments on the suspension here, I'm not going to bore you with it, but I got to get these, whatever the Futurist's tires off and get the Cooper Cobras on, so we have the same exact tire and the tire that should be on it. Once I get it down, I got to pull in the bumper, rock it back and forth, get it settled, and then we're going to be making some torsion adjustments to bring the front down. All right, we got it loaded up with some Cooper Cobras. Haven't cleaned those wheels yet. They're getting pretty dirty already, but we'll wait till the end for all the final details. A little bit of matte tire shine, stuff like that. But anyway, what an absolutely incredible transformation already. Well, we can do better. You can see it's got just a very slight rake. The back tire is tucked, which I like, but see how dorky that looks, even with the bigger tire wheel package. I want to bring that down, and we got tractor suspension on here, so it's really easy. All you do is back this bolt out, and it brings pressure or tension off of this twisted rod or torsion bar, and that essentially is the front coil spring. Otherwise, all you have is a shock. I'll cycle it here. See that? So we're going to take some rounds out of this, and we'll stand back, look at it. You got to cycle the suspension and roll the car so the tires can kind of roll out and do their thing. So don't go too crazy, because then once you drive it around the block, you're going to lose another inch potentially or something like that. So I'm going to throw a wrench on there and start counting turns, see what we can do. Okay, so I've already taken a quarter, half, green, 1 quarter, half. Let's start there. Let's start there. We'll do the same thing here. There we go. Now, we gotta bounce it and roll it. Ball joints look good. Okay, I'm actually gonna fire this thing up. Well, we gotta hear it again, you know what I mean? But also that's gonna help me saw the wheel with the power steering. Go backwards and forwards and get this settled. I think we're gonna end up being okay. Oh, I got parts laying in here. These glass packs sound so much better than the other ones. The other ones were so long and really restrictive. These have that classic sound we all know and love. That's why we gotta fix the choke. Follow the wheel. I'm gonna have to let it warm up a minute. Man, it sounds so good. Oh, now we're talking. Yes, please. Right in my ear holes. Well, that was it. That's all it took. Now that huge gap in the front is gone. It's got a nice little rake to it. We'll have to drive it and see how it's coming as far as alignment goes. Probably have that double checked. Boy, this thing is getting a little too shiny. Starting to get a little nervous around the thing, but it's time to address the fuel make it happener on this thing. Trust me, it is absolutely making fuel happen. Actually, a little bit too much. We got a big old Holly on this thing right now. If we go way back, trying to go through the memory banks, which ends at about 5:42 this morning. Great. I think we tried a Carter AFB on this, which was a remanufactured unit, but the bolt pattern was wrong. It was set up for a square bore, but this has a goofy intake, which I'll get to in a second, and it didn't fit. And we went to like a local shop. It wasn't a speed shop, it was like a mechanic shop, but they had a wall that was kind of like O'Reilly, like a speed wall. And we ended up with this big old Holly on here, and we were so much in a hurry to get back home, because you know my life, it's flight after flight, city after city. We never hooked up the choke. We didn't have any jets to jet it. It's not right. The air-fuel ratio is wrong. All of that stuff. Got back home here, and we need to fix that. Now, that Carter AFB, the reason I brought that with was based on the Venturi size, it would have been the correct CFM for this engine. Now, CFM, I don't know anything about fuel make it happeners. Okay? But CFM is not a ratio or percentage or rating of fuel flow, it's airflow. How much air can that carburetor flow? and you jet your carb or build your carb to inject the right amount of fuel to make the correct airflow or air-fuel ratio, right? How much fuel are you adding to that air? And this is just too big, it's too much. And you got to think about this. Any engine, it's an air pump, it's not a fuel pump, right? So you got to look at cubic inches, compression, and RPM. That's kind of your big wheelhouse when you're trying to figure out the correct fuel make it happen. I can see my breath, it is really getting cold in here. Anyway, so this is a 400 big block built in October 31st, 1975, if memory serves me correctly. It's a low horsepower, low compression engine. They would not have thrown a ton of fuel at this. This is in the fuel crisis, economy mode, smog era, all of that stuff. So this carb, way too big. I've got to put a smaller CFM unit on this if I stand any chance at getting this thing properly tuned. I go to a car show or something like that, and there's nothing wrong with it. Some people don't know this stuff, and I'm just glad to see the rig there and on the road, but 75–80% of rigs are over-carbed. There's too much. 750s and 850s and 950 Demons and 700 double pumpers, and they're on a 302 or a 351 or a 350 or whatever it is. Use the interwebs. There's calculators out there, fellers and fellettes. You can type in your compression, your displacement, and what is your shift point? And it'll say, most commonly, and it'll blow your mind, 500 to 650 CFM is optimal. We're actually over-carbing a lot of these engines. So I'm going to take this big boy off, throw it on the shelf. Don't worry, we're going to use it later. You know that. And I got to use something up here. I've got, well, there's some boxes I got to dig through. I am going to try to get to probably 550 to 600 CFM. And we'll bolt that on, and I can guarantee you, with just a little bit of adjusting, it's going to start easier, foul less plugs, we'll spend less time and money under the hood, it's going to run better, be snappier, all of the above. So let's pop this open, get this Holly off, I'll throw something on, and it'll be a surprise. Maybe you'll see what it is. We'll talk about it. Let's dig in. Well, the guy's got a fuel make it happener on. We got vacuum port hooked up to the valve cover here. We got the PCV running off the intake on the Polara Laser up to the brake master there. Throttle is on, already tested this. Most important part is just making sure a guy can get full throttle. You know what I mean? Ground to the choke. I went ahead and cleaned this up and used this Boss in the intake here. Ran a 5/16 flange into that. Changed out the clear 33003 with a chrome one. I like the clear ones when you're on the road because you can see what's going on, but we know this is running good fuel. So I changed that out with what kind of would have been in here stockish, or ish more gooder. So now we got to run 12 volts to the electric choke. We want that on key on only, right? So when key off, we don't want this 12 volts. It's going to be running the choke all the time and draining the old lightning cube over here. So we're going to have to run a line through the firewall somewhere and make it look good, and try to find some sort of 12 volt switch ignition somewhere. So I think I'm going to use a black wire, you know, run everything the same color. Why not? But we're going to bring this up, jam it in somewhere, plug that up. I've already got a meter in here. I think we're just going to start poking the fuse panel here and just see what we can find. Maybe we could tie into something that's fused and also gets the right voltage. So let me poke around with this. I'll just use probably like the sill plate screw or the brake pedal lever, just something to get a clean ground. Test for voltage. I'll run that wire and get her plugged in here. Well, the guy's got her all buttoned up here. I did run a little piece of red tape over the positive one
the sad one we'll just let be. But anyway, that's all wired in. We got 12 volts here, tested that. Little trick on, well, any nut that you're cutting on some sort of thread or bolt, thread the nut on first, then cut it. So I just took a 5/16 flange nut, ran it on, death wheeled it, run the nut off, cleans the threads up, put that guy back on there. Not a 383, but looks pretty sharp. Anywho, it's going to show you guys, I think all you trust me, but if you're new here, 68 degrees. This thing is stone cold. 65. Probably a little warmer on this side actually, because I got the leg burner running over there, but this thing is just sitting here, 63. We're going to go ahead and try out a cold start with a digital choke now, bolted on, smaller carb. I've got these at 1 3/4 turns air fuel mixture, and I'm predicting this thing is going to run tremendously better with this smaller carb. All right. Whoop. Had a little trouble light still running in here. I did prime the carb, so that should help us on a cold start, or first start I should say. It's never had fuel in it. There we go. Much better. Nice. Mission accomplished. Now, I'll bring it up to temperature and then dial in the air fuel. I do it by ear. It's the best meter on the planet, and your whiffer. Nothing can beat that. If you don't want to do that, you can put a vacuum gauge on full manifold vacuum and just adjust your air fuel ratio screws until you see the highest vacuum pull or cleanest burn essentially. And that's going to be where you want your idle. By the smell of it already in here, it's pretty good. I don't think I'm going to have to change much, to be honest. Okay, it is time to move on to the cooling system. Now we've got to get rid of this rad, obviously. We've got to put the right radiator hoses in. Hopefully the radiator I got fits, new cap. Make sure the cooling system's dialed. And this I found in the trunk. My buddy Jason must have ordered this. This is original style Mopar printed heater hoses. It's got all the print and everything right on it. Really cool, has the original style clamps and bands and everything in it. Might as well go ahead and do this. I was going to replace those hoses anyway because they got Craigslist rebuild overspray on them and they look old and cruddy. And it's little things like this that can really catch a car feller's eyes. You know what I mean? The details. Sometimes, 94% of the time, we just pretend we don't see it. But in this case, I think it's going to do us a lot of good. Let's dig in, start tearing junk out, trying to put more better kind of ish junk back in.
Well, enough pitter patter. We got to get this done. The newly ordered rad has showed up. I have to tell you, this thing was spendy. Super hard to find for this particular vehicle. I think the measurements are closer. We'll have to make it work. Just got to thread in these fittings. This is for the transmission cooler. Put some tape on these, and then we'll come back and rip this out, which I think is just held in with ratchet straps and zip ties. Get the lines off, get this new one in here, get the lines on it, transmission cooler lines, and we'll have our cooling system done. Then we can fill this thing up, run it, burp it, do all of that stuff. Here we go.
Radiator's all installed. Got her topped off. Just waiting for the thermostat to open here. Had a little leak initially. You can see the bloodbath down there of Addis. Had a little leak, had to tighten up a hose clamp. But otherwise, no leaks. Heater hoses look good. No leaks there. I'm not even sure what that hose is off of. I got a bunch. Well, I found them in the trunk. I must have ordered them before. They went straight. This is the chunk that I cut out of some big, long, goofy one, but it works really good. Fit in there nice. So we'll let this warm up, burp the air out of it. It sounds so good. So now we are down to little details here. I'm going to throw a new rad cap on this. Going to use a pressure release. 13 pounds is non-AC, 16 pounds is with AC for the Mopars. I'm going to run a, overflow tubey, probably zip tie. Just get that off to the side over here. Not going to worry about a jug right now. Going to replace this vacuum line. It's been spray bombed. It's also cracking and pretty brittle. We'll get that replaced. I've got to come in here, and we went from a 1-wire to a 2-wire charging whirler here. So to get this thing to get excited and fired up and start shooting juice again, I got to do a little bit of wiring. All we have to do is run any one of the fields. It doesn't matter on Mopar. This gets voltage. And I stuck it on this one back here. Doesn't matter which one. And we're going to take this one and just run it right to here, or wherever. I just need to ground that out, and this puppy will fire back up, and that looks a lot better than the spray bombed unit in here. And I got to then we're going to go ahead and put the antenna back on, which I found in the trunk. Get that done, put that on, and I've got window crank handle to put on over there. Just some small piddly stuff like that. I'm going to jump inside, lower the top. There's some screws back here. When the trim piece went back on with the new top, they're kind of long, and they're just, I don't know, they're bugging me. And that's these screws. So I'm going to climb inside underneath here and hack these off. Just clean it up a little bit. Very small details. We're not used to doing this around here, but we want to finish this. It's not a nut and bolt. It's not a frame off. It's not a rotisserie. We're still calling it a restoration, though. We're paying attention to details. We're touching everything on the car. So let's dig in, get all the stuff done I just mentioned, and then we're going to go cruise. Well, we got the antenna out of the trunk. Not a huge fan of this big old thing, but it's better than having nothing. So this is stripped out. I think that's why it was taken off. But I'm just going to use some basic hardware here and thread this through. We'll tighten it up, and that's going to have to be good enough. Maybe we'll get some stations. Wouldn't that be something? Now, guys, gonna climb on in here and trim off these screws. Come on now. All right. Gotta be careful of these sparks, kinda. There, that's looking better. A few long ones over here.
much, much better. Now I'll get some rebuild black and come in here and touch up those fender wells and that surround. And I gotta lubricate this door hinge. So here's what I'm talking about. That's before. So that's overspray from when the paint was done on the vehicle. And then we got some rebuild black on this side. It hasn't dried yet, but yeah, just looks a lot better, especially looking through the back plastic here. We'll get that taken care of. Got a license plate for edging, but most of this I could just freehand. I think the last thing we are going to do to this car is the window crank. This little guy up here, it's a fine thread socket cap. What I'm doing here is making sure it's the same angle as the passenger door, because that drives me crazy when they're different directions. There we go. Buick kind of started that. Crankouts. Well, there's only one thing left to do. Let's get this outside, take a look at the whole rig, drink it up, and I gotta run this down the road. Some feller started a restoration on this 1965 Dodge Polara in the late 90s, but quickly thereafter, that fizzled out for some unknown reason, probably just life. And boy, does that sneak up on all of us. I found it sitting in a garage that had been sitting since off the road, cobbled it together enough to road trip it all the way back home, where the torch had been passed to me to push it over the finish line and finish the restoration. And no, this isn't a nut and bolt restoration. This is a blue collar restoration. Anyone would be proud to own this car and drive this thing around. You don't have to frame off these things. This one came down to time, patience, perseverance, and a whole lot of elbow grease. And that's really all it took. And quite honestly, other than the top and the radiator, which were the most expensive parts, everything else was pretty boilerplate. Let's take a look at this thing. We addressed all the air fuel, got all that carburetor and everything dialed in, went through the full ignition system on it, went through the cooling system as well, made sure all the belts and hoses and doodads were done right, cleaned up all the wiring underneath the hood there as well. Went through the suspension, greased everything, checked everything, put some air shocks in it, brakes all the way around. And the Krager SS wheels and Cooper Cabras, man, did that change the attitude of this car. Looks fantastic. The new exhaust gives it the right sound, matches the attitude of the car. We cleaned up all the chrome and stainless on this thing and all the glass. Cut and buffed the paint. It's an old paint job, but boy, it's a nice 10-foot car, maybe even 3. I guess it depends on how bad your eyes are. But it does really look nice. Of course, the new top, interior cleaned up. All the gauges are now working. Even the radio, cleaned up the wiring on the inside. We even dolled up the trunk space back there, threw in a spare, and we touched every inch of this car, bumper to bumper, but we did it without breaking the bank. And hopefully this shows you guys, you don't have to throw a credit card and bad checks at your rig. Just go out there and do something. Throw some time at it, throw some elbow grease at it. Start by taking the stuff off the roof, for Pete's sake. You're denting it. You know what I mean? This is Uncle Derek telling you, once again, people don't have to like your rig. You have to like your rig. And remember, your project won't work if you don't. Thanks guys for watching. Appreciate you all so very much. And hey, we'll see you next week.